Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm back, and I am back. So yeah, I just got a couple of thoughts about, just a couple of things, right? I'd like to say I actually found two jobs, right? So that's an interesting little update. Also, I've been doing a lot of little interesting things with AI, or what we call AI, these intelligent services. Um, in terms of been reading about them, reading about reading various books about them, both good, bad, some fantasy, some real. Some of them ominous, some of them great. Um, various danger warning signs, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, and learning about some of the I guess the numbers behind AI, and looked at various videos about that, and read some articles about that as well, from various magazines. Um, and I find it very interesting, right? So anyway, so maybe I can uh, sort of share some of that with you. And I don't have any graphics or anything like that with me, but that's fine. Yeah. Whatever it is, whatever. But I guess my videos are just like listening videos where you sort of listen. You don't even have to look at me, right? So, right. Anyway, man. So we got AI, artificial intelligence, great stuff. I think everybody should actually use it, give it a shot, give it a try, in various forms. But it should be purposeful and targeted, not sort of like falling down rabbit holes, and not replacing your ability to reason, right? Um, and yeah, because I hear a lot about people that you know can't code anymore, or forgot how to code because they're using AI so much, which I don't think. I guess it may not. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as your ability to reason in a logical fashion remains, right? So I think if that remains, then it's probably fine if you don't code anymore. I've seen a recent interview from a guy. What's it? The guy now that organization called Anything. I think anything.com. Yes. So I seen that guy, an interview with that guy, and essentially he says, "Hey, coding is pretty much dead, right?" So you have some big time people. Well, it makes sense, right? He's doing things that actually are tools that will, low code, no code tools for developing and designing various kinds of applications. So his organization, that's what they do, right? So it's like, okay, well, that's cool. So it makes sense for him to actually say that. Then you have some organizations. I think I seen another interview by uh, Zip. I think it's Zap or Zip, or something like that. Some sort of some new programming language that's being made. And that individual, he said, no AI, don't use it. They don't use AI at all because it's slop and it's garbage. Well, so in some respects, in some regard, that's quite true. I totally agree. I mean, I've used the tools, and it does generate crap. When you want to, no, not, let me say, it can generate code that is not the best, but it's good starter code. Um, and for code, some code it can generate very well, very, very well. And I think that's all about what it's been trained on, right? If it's trained on, you know, lots and lots of the same code to solve many different kinds of problems and issues, then hey, man, it'll give you something very nice. If it hasn't, if you ask it to do certain things, certain pieces of code that hasn't been trained to actually do, or hasn't come across, then it'll probably give you something that is not so great, right? And so your ability to discern whether or not this is good code or whether or not this is bad code is what you need to have, right? You need to have the ability to discern that so that you can build and make products that are awesome. And that's pretty much it. Then that's pretty much how I think you should be using AI, um, at the moment, at this point in time, right? AGI is something that everybody keeps warning about and talking about. So, like I said, I've read some articles on that. Um, so what that's artificial general intelligence, right? Or as some say, um, you know, automation autonomous, no, autonomous ginormous. That's my little thing. Autonomous ginormous intelligence. That's what, right? Some say or autonomous general intelligence. Um, I say autonomous ginormous intelligence. That is the scary one. That is the one that they're talking about that can make, essentially either life very, very hellish and crazy and terrible, or something that is awesome, wonderful, great paradise fantasy that we'd all like to live in. Now, if it's something in between, that's cool. Well, I don't really mind. I'd like, it's cool. All right, but yeah, autonomous, ginormous intelligence. Yeah, that's the one. And we're not there yet, but I'm quickly working. I guess they're quickly working there, working towards that. Um, but anyway, in the meantime, right, we do have all these tools that have all these capabilities that gives us access to so much wonderful compressed information that's publicly available that we can all use to do all kinds of interesting things, right? Um, but yeah, and I do see, like what everybody's saying. I mean, if you don't actually grab onto these tools and try to use them, not saying, like I said, you don't leave behind your ability to reason and whatnot. Yeah, you'll kind of be be left behind, I suppose, in some respects. Right, because these tools will be put into place essentially to do, you know, um, do the things that low skilled people used to do. We're already seeing that to some degree, right? But obviously, at some point, higher order skills are also on the table. Currently, I'd say higher order skills obviously are on the table right now, right? So anyway, so there's that. So um, in terms of me, one of the jobs that I did find, and I actually got a paycheck for the first time, a paycheck. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Anyway, so it was actually training the AI. How funny, ain't that funny? So I found a job training AI. And what was that now? What did I do? Funny thing, all right. So the job actually was. This is the funny thing about it now. So the job was just advertised as you're going to be. They want an engineer, a software engineer, software developer, engineer, whatever. Somebody who understands various concepts about programming and software and all that kind of stuff. I got an assessment, went through assessment. I guess I did well in the assessment, so didn't hear anything back for, I'd say, probably a good maybe month and a half, right? And that's actually, so I did assessments for two organizations that are into this whole AI training thing. Basically like you're this kind of gig worker kind of thing, right, man? I'll tell you, it's funny. So anyway, so I did, and then one of the organizations I never heard anything back from, right? That's been like months and months. Then I did an assessment for another organization. Said, all right, well, what the hell? I'll do the assessment. They actually pay you, right? They paid you for this. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take the cash. Let's go. So I did the assessment, did well, whatever. Some programming stuff. They ask you various programming concepts. Um, the interview in and of itself was very interesting. Um, in that I think it was all AI. I think that was my third all AI interview. This one was kind of smoother though in terms of the AI that asks you questions when you have to go back and forth in between. So that was kind of cool. So that was an interesting experience. It's all on a video camera and whatnot. You go back and forth. It asks you various questions, various concepts about stuff. Anyway, so yeah, so I did the assessment. The assessment went great, wonderful. I got the job. After about a month and a half, they came back to me and said, "Oh, we think your skill set, based on your skill set, yada yada yada, this is good." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." Me, I don't really believe anything until I get the first paycheck. Um, so yeah, so cool. So I got the first, I got the gig. They give you the onboarding thing. You go through the onboarding process. You read all this stuff, and then you get all the various access to these various tools for onboarding. And Yeah, so and then you read all the onboarding documentation and what they want. And when I read what they wanted for me to do, granted they're paying me over 100, over 100. I'm not going to say the exact number, but okay, let's say this, less than. over $100, but less than $120 an hour, right? So in between the range of $100 to $120 an hour to do this particular job. So this is awesome. It's not bad. So, but when I found out what it was, it's crazy. They wanted me to read. No matter of fact, they wanted me to review some PowerPoint, some Microsoft documents. Let's say that they wanted me to review some Microsoft documents for aesthetics. Did y'all hear what I said? They wanted me to review Microsoft documents for aesthetics for $100 to $120 an hour. I oh damn, man! I was like, what the hell is this? Yo, when I read that, nah, this is not real, man. No, it's not real. I was like, man, this can't be real, man. So I was like, okay, well, I'm like, let's go, right? So anyway, so now I go ahead and I go through the assessment. They pay you for they not just the assessment, they pay you for the training, the onboarding, and everything. So I'm like, okay, so I went through the onboarding. It didn't take that long. So I made my first going through the onboarding. I made my first my first 100 or so bucks, right? Because it was a little over an hour or something like that. So like, oh damn! So I'm making generating some cash. Um, yeah. So now after the onboarding, now you get all access to all the tools, and then you get access to essentially like your task the task dashboard. And in the task dashboard, you got to go through a little quiz that to determine whether or not you're qualified to continue the process. So you get another assessment. Essentially, it was like, wow, okay, so you get another assessment, um, to determine whether or not you're qualified to do this, whether or not you're qualified to. So I'm like, well, this is it has to do with software, but you're not actually creating or designing or aiding the AI and making or doing anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, whatever, sure. So yeah, I passed the quiz because it's like, very simple questions about Microsoft products, right? That we all know and use. No big deal, man, right? So I was like, yeah, no big deal. I mean, as a person that has been doing software for, over 2 decades, literally, you know, and using Microsoft, the standard Microsoft products that everybody used. I think you've probably been using it since college. Yeah, the questions were like, "Are you serious? Give me a break." So anyway, so I passed that, and then so I was qualified now, deemed qualified to assess these things for aesthetics, right? so so now, okay, so now after that, um, now it's time to do the actual task. Um, so now, like I said, I get access to the task dashboard, and it's crazy, man. So come to find out after going through the chat, because they have like a chat thing. I'm not going to say the actual name of the chat product that they use, but whatever. They got this chat product that you use. And then so everybody's on the chat. You see all the groups of people coming through and all kinds of stuff, and I'm reading through the comments inside the chat, and it's just like, oh, okay, cool. So this is where everybody meets up. This is where they put their complaints at and all that kind of stuff. Come to find out, there's like, okay, you go inside of your task window, and you're looking for your task, and it's like, okay, well, you go to the area where that they're supposed to list the task. I don't know if you ever use a product like ServiceNow where you get tasks or whatever is assigned to you. So it's kind of like that. Um, but anyway, so now you go to where you're supposed to, and then so it's like, okay, well, I go in there. I don't see any tasks. So where's my task at? I'm like, okay, there's no task. And so I go back. I say, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I click the button, and then I click the refresh button on the browser or whatever it is. Right? So I look, and then I say, oh, there's a task. Okay, cool. So I went in there. I go to get the task. I click the task, and I'm following the instructions. You got to assign it to yourself. So I'm going ahead, click the task, and then wait a minute, the task is gone. What happened to the task? It just disappeared. Okay, like, whoa, okay, maybe something's wrong with my browser. Let's see, something wrong with my browser. So, so I click refresh again, And then it's like, boom, okay, boom, there's like three more tasks. All right, so I grab a task, I click the boom, and then I click the task to go ahead and assign it to myself, and boom, the task is going again. Oh, damn. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I'm like, maybe there's something wrong with my machine. Okay. So I go back to the chat and I'm about to start chatting, but they always say, before you ask any questions or whatever it is, or create a new chat, read to determine whether or not your question has already been asked by someone else. All right, cool. So I'm on the clock. So I'm like, all right, cool, no big deal. They paying me for this. So while I'm trying to find a task, I'm on the clock, and I'm also because I'm working. This is work, right? So I'm going ahead. I'm going inside the chat, and I'm going in the chat. I'm reading about what's going on here. Come to find out, I see that hey, I'm one of maybe like 9,000 people on this project. I'm one of like 9,000 people on the project, and I ain't the only one that hasn't been able to find a task. I keep, same thing. People keep pressing refresh button, and the task keep disappearing. Ah, one of the comments was pretty apt. It was pretty apt. So essentially, it basically said, "Man, this is like the Hunger Games." The Hunger Games. And then another one was like, "No, this is not the Hunger Games. This is Squid Games." Where you gotta press the button. Where you gotta press the button before anybody else, so you get blown up or something. Oh man, that's funny. And another comment was like, "Yo, we like pigs at the trough, man. This is survival of the fittest, kid." Oh man, so essentially, what you got to do, come to find out after reading the comments there, you got to actually keep hitting that refresh button, and you got to be fast on the draw to actually get that task and assign it to yourself first. Now, obviously, as a software engineer, I'm thinking like, well, damn, all I got to do is write a browser extension or a Python script or something like that, and that's going to go ahead and automatically allow me to get one of these tasks. So said, so done. So I wrote me a nice Python program that just sits there, refreshes the browser to click on a task and automatically assign it. Boom, kid, problem solved, right? Yeah, I guess maybe not really. I don't know. Well, I guess when you against 9,000 people, that don't really matter too much. That was hard as hell getting tasks, man. It was hard as hell, man. It's so funny. Meaning that, obviously to get the task, you gotta hit the refresh button and all that. Anyway, so eventually I wound up getting the task or a couple of tasks, which only took probably a little over an hour, some of them an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 30 minutes or so, something like that, in order to, review things for aesthetics. Now, you're not even looking at the content. You don't care about the content, what it says. You're just reviewing it for aesthetics and then writing comments based on that and then giving it a grade and all that stuff. So that's essentially what the process was. It was like, okay. But yeah, so that was a trip. And I would say that it's crazy. The realization of what's going on is, people are using this. This is just a guess. I don't really know. But based on, because you actually get to read the comments coming from people as well. And it looks like based on the comments for these AI requests, it looks like what's going on is people are actually writing these requests, right? Right, and then the AI is actually generating responses. But now, us people, these people, the 9,000 people at the trough, are actually looking through the responses and gauging which response is the best one to actually respond back to the people. And so essentially what it looks like, these are agents. The agents are actually generating these requests. So now the expectation is that these agents are going to take a while to actually come back with the answer, right? Meaning that, maybe this is one of 100 or so agents or 30 agents or whatever it is that people got running in the background doing stuff. And that, these agents are going to do their thing. They're going to compile whatever it is, and eventually it's going to come back at some point to these people and answer them, at what they're part of, that agentic answer or whatever. So that's basically what it looks like. So we're training the AI as far as aesthetics wise, how to put these things together that, in a manner that is usable and useful and aesthetically pleasing to individuals, which is, I wouldn't say there's some subjectivity to it. There's also some objectivity to it as well, because there's certain things that you wouldn't want in a document that, you know, makes sense to put in a document to make it more editable, usable, and all that kind of stuff. So I get that. But yeah, so that's essentially what the role was, to generate a response that's usable by the AI in a structured way so that it can actually grade, or become better at grading these particular documents, right? And that was it. That was interesting. So, and it's kind of funny because even though, and come to find out also, I can get the task. So I think I'm not sure how many other people can get the task, but more than one person can get the same task and actually work on that task. So I don't think everybody working was actually making that cash, that $100+ an hour or something like that. I guess it's probably some people were, some people are not. I don't know. You know what I mean? I think what the idea here is to get multiple responses and multiple different grades so that we can train the AI on actually, well, that's training, right? I mean, you need a good sample for the AI to train the AI so that it can get better at doing these kinds of things. So that was interesting. And then, interesting experience working on that. And that's what I've been doing lately. So like I said, I got several tasks, made a decent amount, made some cash. So that's one job. And then I got another actual job, like a corporate job, right? And that one is still, meaning that I got the offer, but I have to wait for some processes to actually go through. I don't know whether or not those processes will actually go through because I've actually been waiting on those processes to go through for quite a while. Oh man, it's funny. So anyway, so yes, and that I think to also to get that job, man, like I said, I use my tool. I developed this tool that allows me to apply to many jobs um automatically, right? Um, and so yeah, so I use that tool, and the tool actually, it was awesome. I basically just took a list of companies, and I put it inside my tool, and it had some problems with some of the workflows, and then it's just a matter of just going into the code, updating it so that it accommodates that particular workflow for that particular company's job site, and then that's pretty much it. And then it just went and it used my resume and it just was applying. Anything that was, software oriented, that had the various keywords that I specified, and also that was also manager oriented with, any kind of software. So it just did that for all these organizations and companies and allowed me to, get, I only literally, I think I only had like four interviews with various organizations. And then one out of the four, one of those interviews, because I've had tons of interviews so far too over this whole year thing. But anyway, one of those organizations actually gave me an offer just after one interview. Actually, no, after two interviews with that organization. Yes. So that was cool, right? But like I said, I'm in a holding pattern because I don't, some processes that have to go through, and I don't know whether or not they'll go through. But I'm sitting in the. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't because like, whatever, it just, you know, it's um there's things that they got to do or whatever it is, right? I guess on their side or whatever. I don't. But anyway, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't go through. But hell, if it doesn't, I'd love to. I'll definitely update you and tell you what the deal is with that and what happened and why, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, so that's pretty much what's been going on lately with the job situation and whatnot. But I think right now I'm definitely looking forward to continuing to do some of this YouTube stuff and work with various kinds of tools. I have several interesting, I guess, well, to me they're interesting, but ideas for YouTube channels that I'm going to go ahead and try to go ahead and make um, and see whether or not I can make anything of it. I mean, this channel right here, I've been, I call it the code review, and yeah, I'm going to get back to reviewing code. But hey, it's not just the code review about software code, because I think software code now is one of these kind of things that Not everybody's going to learn, not everybody's going to like, and not everybody's going to need to understand. But I'm still going to, dabble in it here and there just to keep it fresh in the brain and in the mind, and have the ability to continue to think logically about problems and issues. Um, but anyway, even with that, it's also about the code of life, right? What's going on here. Yeah. So, anyways, that's pretty much all I got here for this particular video. It's just my experience about, I guess, getting a new gig, autonomous ginormous intelligence. I'll probably make another video that's totally just about autonomous ginormous intelligence. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you very much. And hope to see you soon, man. Again, on another chat.